Hey guys, I wish you were in my class, but since we're not here right now, we're gonna do our notes this way through a video. Find a piece of paper, or if you're really good at Office 365, you can go onto Microsoft Word document and create a folder in your Office 365 and then put a Microsoft Word document in it and call it your Unit 1 Notes. You can always pause this video at any time so you can get that done and then come back to me. So get your paper or get your Microsoft Word document and pause me right now. I fooled you, really. I was just acting like I was paused, but you gotta pause me. So I'll just assume that you're back now. No problem. Let's take a look at our notes right here. This is Unit 1, The Age of the Explorers, and you can see that I put a picture right there of one of those ancient caravels that the ancient sailors and explorers used to navigate the open ocean. I've been on the open ocean. I know that River Barnhouse went deep sea fishing this summer, so he was out on the open ocean where you couldn't see any land. I wonder if he got sick. I got a little green in the face when I went deep sea fishing once. I was motion sick. The ocean and the boat was doing this. I got a little green in the face, and I think I chummed over the side. But I got to feeling better as the day went. River's been on the open ocean. I've been on the open ocean. Now, I want to show you, I'm going to activate yourself, or activate all of us, really, with our brains. Activate swimming with dolphins. I did swim with dolphins. I had the opportunity one time when my uncle was in the Navy to spend 3 days and 3 nights on the United States Henry L. Stimson. It was a nuclear submarine back in the early 90s. And I was able to go with him for 3 days and 3 nights. And we surfaced, the submarine surfaced up out of the water one day. And we were, gosh, I don't know, off the coast of off the eastern coast of the United States, somewhere out there in the Atlantic. The sonar guy told me we were in 1,500 feet of water. 1,500 feet of water. And we surfaced so that the sailors and the guests like me that were there could go swimming on topside. So it was quite an experience to swim and jump off that submarine into the water, which was only about a 10-foot drop. But I kept looking up to the top of that submarine where the fair water planks were. And I wanted to go up there and dive off of that. So I got my courage a little bit and I climbed up that little ladder, you know, on the side of the submarine, and I got up on the fair water planks and I dove into 1,500 feet into the Atlantic Ocean. It was pretty cool. And everybody was clapping for me because they thought I was awesome, you know, and I thought I was pretty cool. And once I got back up onto the submarine, one of the Navy guys said, "That was a really great dive you did there. That was a nice dive off that fair water plank, about 50 feet up in the air, you know." And he said, "Come on up and do it again with me." So I went up there with me, and when we got up onto the wings of the fair water plank, he turned around and said, "Hey, do this." And he did a backflip, triple twist, 50 feet down into the water. And then everybody was waiting on me to try it. So you know what I did. I just did my little sissy dive because I couldn't do the backflip triple gainer into the water. Swimming in the 1,500 feet of water, the swells were doing this. And it was really cool, you know, when you tried to swim, because you would swim up a wave and then on the top side you would swim back down the wave. But while we were out there swimming, one of the guards, or one of the Navy men, one of the sailors, who was in charge being the lifeguard, he looked out and said, "Hey, look, dolphins." And we were able to look, and just, you know, maybe 100 yards away, not 100 yards, 50 yards away from the submarine, there was a pod of dolphins swimming out there with us. And the lifeguard sailor said, "Well, it's good that we have it's good," let me back up. He said, "It's good that there are dolphins." And I asked him why. And he said, "Well, where there's dolphins, it means there's no sharks." So I said, "So we've been swimming out here an hour, and now you tell me there's no sharks." So that It made me feel a little bit uneasy, but I wanted to swim with the dolphins. I had these grand illusions that I could swim out in the ocean and grab one of those dolphins by their fin and let it pull me through the water. So I dove in and tried to swim, and I couldn't get more than 15 feet close to them. I tried very hard to swim with those dolphins up close and personal, but they wouldn't let me get as close up to them as I wanted. Good times. I told you that little story about swimming with dolphins in the open ocean. I've been out in the open ocean. River was out there in the open ocean this summer, but, can you imagine, taking a ship like this and sailing to unknown territory in the open ocean and being brave enough to do that? These boats didn't have motors on them or anything like that. And I wanted to just relate that open ocean, the vastness of it, and the power of ocean water to these age of explorers as they set sail to explore uncharted territories. Now, I know what you're thinking for a minute. You're thinking, isn't this U.S. history? So why are we learning about, ancient explorers from Europe? But in order to learn about American history, we have to find out how it all started. So history is a story that we have to tell. And when you're talking about American history, you have to go back to the Middle Ages first. The Middle Ages, the Renaissance, knights, castles, the Black Death Plague. You have to learn about all of those things first, because there's a reason why the people in Europe didn't realize that the American continents existed. They had no idea that North America and South America was out there. Now, obviously, there were Native Americans who lived in North and South America. They knew North and South America was there because they lived there. But the people in Europe had no clue. So we have to go back a little bit into history to the Middle Ages to understand a few things. Now, I'm gonna put an essential question up here for our notes, and I want you to pause me, and then I want you to copy these down. So right here we go. Essential question number 1 asks us a simple question. How did the commercial revolution and the Renaissance change Europe? I want you to go ahead and pause me for a second and make sure you copy this down. Take good notes. Let me remind you again, take good notes. Your notes are your textbook. So now put this back up. You can pause me. And now we're back, so I get to explain some of it. The Renaissance. I always remember the Renaissance with the first 2 letters of its word, R-E. The Renaissance was a rebirth, a reawakening of knowledge in Europe at the end of the Middle Ages. And the Renaissance and the commercial revolution that happened in Europe towards the end of the Middle Ages, what it did was it taught people to think for themselves for once. It taught people to question, and it taught people to ask why. The Crusades, you learned about those in Coach Halsey's class. You learned about the Crusades with Mr. Collison. And let me just refresh your memory for a moment. If 2 guys like the same girl, there's going to be a fight. And the Crusades were just that way, not over a girl. You see, all of the Christians in Europe looked at Israel and Jerusalem as their holy land, because that is where Jesus walked the earth and was born and did his ministry on this earth. And it was a holy land for them. But you also have to understand that at that time, it was also perceived as the Holy Land for the Muslims, because their prophet, Muhammad, grew up there and walked this earth and did his ministry there. So you have these 2 religious groups who both claim the same land over in the Middle East, and they both are calling it their Holy Land. Well, there's gonna be a fight. So the Muslims came in and took back that, Holy Land that was theirs. And all of the Christians in Europe answered the Pope's call. He rallied all of the knights. He rallied all of the Christians together and cried out for them to go to the Middle East and make war upon the Muslims and take back the Holy Land for the Christians in Europe. So all of the knights in Europe left their homes and traveled all the way across Europe and across the Mediterranean and into the Middle East so that they could, fight and gain back the Holy Land for the Christians. Now, I know you're thinking, how does this relate to American history? I'm going to get there. I might have to just go through the back window or the back door, but we're going to make it there somehow. These knights were exposed while they were over there in the Middle East to a couple of items that people in Europe hadn't seen much before. I don't really have exactly those items today because, well, they would be too old. But I want you to look at something right here. Oh boy, look at this. This is a fine little piece of cloth. It's so smooth and silky. Oh yeah, that's silk. Oh, and look at this. Pepper. Boy, I like a lot of pepper on my food. I like a lot of spices in my food. Some of you like spices too. Well, the soldiers, the Christian knights from Europe who were in the Middle East fighting, they came across these two items that they hadn't seen much of before. Silk and pepper and spices for food. They liked them. They thought it was cool. So they brought them back to Europe with them and introduced these things to the people in Europe. And the nobles in Europe really liked the silk. You can imagine if you were a princess. Ooh, I wish I had some of that silk for a dress. Ooh, this would make great sheets and bed covers, so smooth. And the nobles who could put pepper and spices on their food, make them taste better, they fell in love with this. So we've all played the Marco Polo game in the pool. Marco, Polo. We've all played the game in the pool where Marco Polo was a great merchant who decided, you see, because of the commercial revolution that this created, because of the Renaissance, it made him think, I don't have to be poor. I don't have to be like a poor merchant who is peddling little wooden trinkets at a Renaissance fair trying to make money. If I could find a way to get over to the Far East in India where this silk and pepper came from, and I could bring it back to Europe, I can sell it to the nobles and make lots of money. So Marco Polo did just that. That's what he's famous for. He helped establish the Silk Road. It was a trade route that went from Europe across the Mediterranean, through the Middle East, and all the way over into the Far East to bring back silk and spices to sell to the nobles in Europe. And that's where all of this thing gets started. Wow. I'm going to put up essential question number 2 for you, and you can pause me and write this down. Essential question number 2. Why did the countries of Europe seek an all-water route to India? Well, there's the answer. You can put me on pause, copy these down, and then I'll explain it to you. Well, now that you're back from pausing it, the Silk Road. Yeah, Marco Polo basically became a rich merchant doing what he did. But it took a long time by land and across the Mediterranean, walking through the Middle East, probably riding camels, over into India, through the Himalaya mountains and the snow to get the silk and spices. It took, many times that trip could take up to 4 years to go out and back. For those of you guys who've ever worked at a job before, you ever waited a long time to get your paycheck? Can you imagine waiting 4 years to get your money? It's a long time. So people started to think for themselves. And they thought to themselves, You know, if we could find a quicker way to get over to India and China and the Far East and bring back the silk and spices, we could make money a little bit faster. So their goal, and I'll put this question back up here again. Look, the countries of Europe were seeking an all-water route to India for one reason. They needed a faster, quicker way to get there and get the silk and spices and get it back. The Silk Road took too long. It all boiled down to this. That's right, guys. Money. Money makes the world go round. Money, 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 money. Or the J.G. Wentworth. Is it J.C. Wentworth or J.G. Wentworth? I don't know. It's the commercial where they go, if you have structured settlement and you need cash now, call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now. I think it is J.G. Wentworth. But it all boiled down to money. They needed to find a water route to India to make it quicker. Now, we're going to put up a little map for you here, and I'll let you take a look at that. Well, right here is Europe. Over here is India and the Far East. The Silk Road went across the Mediterranean, across Europe, across the Middle East, through the Himalaya Mountains, all the way over into India. That's a long time. Now, the all-water route. The problem is, people in Europe had no idea that the continent of Africa was that big. So explorers would set out from Europe, Portugal, Spain, and they would sail down the coast of Africa, and they would make a map, and then they would run out of supplies and have to go back. But then the next explorer who went would sail down the coast of Africa and on past that point, and then they would run out of supplies and have to go back. Now, we all know it's very simple. You just can go all the way. You can just go all the way down here around the coast of Africa and up to India. But you see, back then they didn't have GPS. They didn't have Google Maps. And they weren't exactly sure where they were going. And that's why the race for the all-water route started. Now, we're going to end up in this unit explaining to you how this leads to the discovery of America and how America even gets discovered in all of this. But I think you're with me so far at least. We know to get silk and spices, the countries of Europe wanted an all-water route to India to make it quicker so they could get money. Now, there's only 7 vocabulary words in this unit. I'm going to do them 2 at a time for you. So, I'm going to put the screen up here. Vocabulary word number 1 and vocabulary word number 2. You can pause the screen so that you can copy that down. Now that you're back, I can explain them to you. An astrolabe. This was a primitive compass that were used by the early sailors. And I need to write this on here because somehow it got erased, but I'll write it for us. The early sailors. They used the stars, they used the constellations, and they helped use an astrolabe to help guide them because they were going into territory that they hadn't explored before. I know that when I was deep sea fishing, like River was this summer, we were out so far off the coast that I couldn't see land anymore. And I always brag about my sense of direction. That's right, I'm one that never asks for directions. I will never stop and ask for directions. I know how to get there. Even if I get lost, I would never admit it. It's a guy thing. But I have a really good sense of direction. I told the captain on our fishing ship, I said, hey, look, I bet I could tell you where land is when we head back. So we were ready to head back, and he was like, okay, you know where land is? We couldn't see any land. But I thought in my sense of direction, I knew where land was. I said, well, we have to go back that way. And the captain laughed and turned the boat this way and said, nope, land is this way. And he used his compass and took us right back to land. So I was totally disoriented. So you can imagine the early sailors. Why do you think they sailed close along to the coast of Africa? So that they could see land and keep it in sight. But they also used this astrolabe as a primitive compass to help guide them in their exploration. Now, the second word there was a caravel. A caravel was a lighter, quicker, faster ship developed by the Portuguese, which would be the people from Portugal. And of course, the purpose of that, it makes sense. If you're trying to find an all-water route to India to get the silk and spices back quicker, well, it makes sense that you would need a quicker ship. The Spanish sometimes had big, bulky ships where they wanted to make them all elaborate and put gold and carvings on them and everything, and they were just big and bulky. But the Portuguese developed these caravels, which were lighter, faster ships. They were designed to make the trip quicker. I'm gonna put the next couple words up here for you. We talked about the commercial revolution. This was an economic movement that changed the way people in Europe made money, especially the middle-class merchants. They had a real opportunity with the silk and spices now to actually become pretty wealthy when they didn't have that opportunity before. So you can pause that and write down the commercial revolution, and we have to write down the Black Death. I'll let you pause that there for a minute. The Black Death. The bubonic plague. The Black Death was possibly traced back to the Silk Road, to fleas on rats that were in the cargo ships that went across the Mediterranean from the Middle East over to Europe. And this Black Death, or also known as the bubonic plague, was a disease that killed 30 million people, or 1/3 of Europe's population died from this. It was a horrible disease. It attacked young people, actually, and healthy people the most at the time, really strange. But it would attack the blood vessels in the lungs of these people. And basically their lungs would fill up with blood, they'd have a high fever, they'd asphyxiate basically, and it was a horrible way to go. High fever, vomiting, your lungs fill up with blood. The Black Death was brutal, and it did a number on Europe's population in the Middle Ages there. And it was a result of the rats and fleas that were on the Silk Road and how it was transmitted. We're dealing with COVID today. It's why you're not in school. Some people said COVID started in China. The bats are transmitting it everywhere. Some people say it's a man-made virus in a lab that escaped and got out. I don't know the truth for all of that or any of that. But the Black Death, definitely a part of the Middle Ages, definitely a part of Europe's history, definitely a part of the Silk Road and the trade from the Far East back to Europe at the time. We only have a few more words left to go through, and one of them is important. It's the Renaissance. I'm gonna put it up for you to copy. You can pause me again and copy down the definition. And I'm back now. We have the Renaissance. I always remember the Renaissance with those first two letters, R-E. Because if you look over here, guess what? It's R-E, R-E. It's a rebirth or reawakening of knowledge at the end of the Middle Ages. And you can see right there that there were a lot of parts of life where the Renaissance affected and took place. There was a rebirth of knowledge, reawakening of knowledge and education. There were advancements in math made and in science. These advancements in science were made. You guys hate geometry? Well, Euclid was the man who developed the principles of geometry during the Renaissance period. Euclid. You can blame him if you hate math. Technology, obviously not computers, but like Archimedes' screw was a way they could use to pump water. Medicine advancements, and art, which, there's a lot of famous art that comes out of the Renaissance. Now, we're not going to touch real deeply on the Renaissance because you did that in sophomore year. I just want you to know that this Renaissance, the rebirth, this reawakening of ideas, this reawakening of knowledge, it taught people to think and to question and ask why. All of this, coupled with trying to find an all-water route to India, is going to lead to the discovery of the Americas later on in our unit when we get to that point. There's another word. The last two words are important people. The first one is Prince Henry. Prince Henry was called the Navigator, and he was important because he was the ruler of Portugal, and he funded or gave money. I know you don't want me to sing that song again, but he funded many sea explorations for the country of Portugal. Portugal is that little tiny country right there in Europe beside Spain. They're right on the ocean. And at this time, because of Prince Henry, they became a world power. I know we don't think of Portugal as a world power today, but in 1500, the Portuguese were some bad dudes because they were not afraid. They were daring explorers on the ocean and some of the best sailors in the whole wide world. And one of their sailors was a man by the name of Bartholomew Diaz. So I got him here. You can copy him down. He was the first Portuguese explorer to sail around Africa's southern tip. Now, I told you I'm like the cat in the hat. There's all kinds of tricks that I know. I showed you about the R-E, Renaissance, R-E, rebirth, reawakening. Well, look right here at Bartholomew Diaz's name, A-S. You know what that stands for? Africa's southern tip. Africa's southern tip. That's how you can remember Bartholomew Diaz. He was the first Portuguese explorer to sail around Africa's southern tip. In other words, he was the first one to make it all the way down and around the southern tip of Africa, the Cape of Good Hope, before he ran out of supplies and he had to turn around and go back. And why was that important? Well, it was important for one good reason. Bartholomew Diaz showed that it could be done, that eventually, if you sail far enough south, you're going to get around Africa, where we can make it up to India. You got to pass that little island right there called Madagascar. You guys know Madagascar. Watch the cartoon. You know, I like to move it. I like to move it. That's the Madagascar island there. But Bartholomew Diaz was the first one to do that. That's the end of the story so far. We have to pick it up in our next lesson of notes as we see this race for an all-water route to India expand a little bit and more players get involved, more stakeholders get involved, and eventually the Americas are going to get discovered. So we'll get to all of that. But for now, you have reached the end of the first section of notes in Unit 1. Don't lose the notes. Keep track of them. They're going to help you answer questions and things later. There's some assignments in our folder for you to work on. Just follow the directions and follow the links in there on Schoology, and you can use your notes to help you out. That's why I said take good notes. And if you ever go deep sea fishing, I hope you don't chum over the side. Until next time, this is Coach Eads, over and out.